Uh-huh.
Welcome to the Optional Boss Podcast. We are your hosts, Josh and Tyler, and this is episode 36, where we are talking the Nintendo Switch Online service. Tyler, how's it going?
It's a good thing we came up with the topic, because if we didn't, we would probably just be talking about Final Fantasy VII, and I don't think that's fair to all these good people.
No, and that would be an episode that I feel would do a little poorly because people don't want to be spoiled, such as yourself, who hasn't finished it yet, right?
Well, I wouldn't even worry so much about poor performance as I would as just the poor people who have to listen to our rambly interpretation of the game. And yeah, spoiling would be just a crime, but that's all I've been doing when I can do it.
Spoiler alert, Sephiroth shows up.
No way.
And things happen.
More than once?
More than once.
Yeah. No, it's been a joy. Like, the fact that I'm 40 hours in now and I'm still like, give me more. Like, not in the slightest has it gotten tiring or monotonous. It just keeps throwing new things and it's so pretty. Oh.
So I've talked about many times how I'm not a huge fan of open world games or games that take longer than, like, say 30 hours. 30 hours I'm usually kind of bored by. This I did in 89 hours, and I did pretty much everything. There was a bug quest later on that I couldn't complete. Side quest, of course. I did all the Queen's Blood stuff. I did pretty much all the extra content I could jam pack down my throat. Didn't get bored. Didn't get tired. Although
that's just it.
So when you beat it, you are given a chapter select, which enables hard mode, if you so choose. I tried it out, did the first 2 chapters, and then I'm like, okay, I can't do this. Because I didn't even do 2 chapters. I did the first chapter, which is pretty much what the demo's based on. And then you go into the grasslands and explore and do quests, and then you go fight a giant snake, and I could not for the life of me kill the giant snake.
Spoiling the fact that there's grassy lands.
That's not hard spoiler.
Mode
it's the opening. They're fine.
It's the same as Mario. You know, there's grasslands in Mario.
And the Firelands. Like
no, what I like about, from what I'm aware, it's not too dissimilar to how Remake did its hard mode. And it's not just your standard, let's make things take longer to fight and do more damage kind of hard mode.
It's not sponginess.
I believe there's a degree of that at least. Like, things are knocked up a bit, but it actually is more so challenging you to play it in a harder way, which is a very clever way to go about a hard mode. I appreciate that. But I also wouldn't want to jump into a hard mode after playing for 90 hours.
So, like, it's hard mode. I don't know Remake's hard mode because I never tried it. But Rebirth's hard mode is you can't use items. Period.
So small and yet such a big game changer.
Oh, it's huge because then you can't use potions or anything like that. You're required to use your spells, which, yes, they're handy the entire time, but it really makes that mana pool such a valuable resource, more so than it would be in the normal game. Because normal game, you're using it to exploit weaknesses like left, right, and center. Where this is like, okay, I need to use this smartly. Because I can't recover this. Nor can you recover it at a normal chocobo bench.
Oh.
Yeah.
Cushions aren't saving the day anymore?
Cushions just, from my understanding, just do health.
Oh. Oh, okay. Well, at least it's like a little bit of a reprieve, but at the same time, like, the MP management is crucial in hard mode, so...
And some of those areas are long.
No, from what I've experienced, there's some... Now, there's not as much combat as there would be in Remake, per se. I mean, it's a lot easier to avoid, but at the same time, you're gonna have to find it somewhere.
Yes.
So
As someone who's experienced the rest of the game, yeah, there's some very difficult fights that come up. And yeah, some of them are optional, some of them are not. But especially the last, I'm gonna say 6 hours of the game, if you're going through the story, you you are gonna want items if you can.
just
It's
a just a
it's entirely
gauntlet.
possible I just suck. That is entirely possible. But
No, that's
that
never a possibility to discount.
I don't think it's a spoiler to say, hey, there's going to be a boss fight at the end of this game. Yeah, that boss fight kicked my ass on normal. So
That's exciting and terrifying.
yes,
Well, I recently also finished off a final boss fight that was not in Final Fantasy, but in Jurassic Park 2 for the Game Boy on the Jurassic Park collection, because I wanted to at least say I beat something in March. Because all my time's been for Final Fantasy. I chalk it up on the board. I need something for that month. So just a
yep,
quick little Game Boy game. And yeah, it was fun, charming little game. If I actually did it in one session, I would probably, I don't know, 2 hours at most. But just little monotonous bursts of it. And yeah, just you finish the game by shooting a T-Rex in the face, just like in the movie.
spoilers.
For Jurassic Park, I think I'm safe. If you
Yeah,
haven't seen it, yeah, you know what? I can't say what's wrong with you. I'm not a movie guy, but it's Jurassic Park.
yeah,
There's spoilers in the Lego, for God's sakes. So
yeah,
no, it was the fun little Game Boy game. I'm always a sucker for a charming little thing like that. But as
nice.
for what I'm gonna do beyond Final Fantasy, probably nothing for at least the next 40 hours of gaming time that I have. But as for beyond it, I don't know.
Like
There's
your
quite a
next
few
big
things.
thing to tackle.
Yeah, or just kind of like I kind of want to pick off like play a little bit of Mega Man this year. Maybe something I haven't done yet before, or maybe just something old and comfortable. I wouldn't mind a turn-based RPG. There's like Sea of Stars. I could finish Live a Live finally. Uh, not sure, but so I don't know if you saw this, but a very small gameplay trailer for Visions of Mana was dropped, I believe today. I think it was at
Yep,
PAX or something.
yep.
Oh, oh God.
So
This,
I haven't had time to watch it, but I saw little clips of it, and it's like, ooh,
it's
I already
yeah, it's
know I'm
maybe like a
sold on it.
minute long, and it's like Devil May Cry. Like that is some snappy combat, and you know what? I'm all for it. If they want to kind of like, it's still an action RPG, which is what I want from Mana. But if
Yes.
they want to kind of like put it more on the level of how Cloud moves in Final Fantasy VII Remake, I'm on board.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
So
it's the Final Fantasy Rebirth and Remake combat is just it's very good and it's very articulated if you want it to be.
yep,
So
yep.
if there's
Choreography
more
is
than that in a
nutty,
different sense, then yeah, I'm down for that.
and
Um,
it's Mana. So
it's it's
summer, I think.
funny thinking you don't know what to play next. It doesn't have a release date yet, does it?
No, just summer, and confirmed not for Switch, which, even though I love the Switch, I'm super okay with that.
Yes. I mean it makes sure that they don't hold back, if you will.
No, for something like that, I'm going to want the best performance possible.
So as for myself, I beat Rebirth, as I mentioned, and it was a wonderful time. I decided not to do hard mode after I attempted some because it's like, okay, I need to move on for a bit. I will happily go back eventually, but I need to move on. And I was in a very nostalgic kind of sense. It's like, oh, what should I play? And I thought about playing Sekiro, which I may still do. I also thought about booting up the PS5 version of Disco Elysium and trying that out.
Mm.
Um, I thought about doing Silent Hill 2 again. Because Silent Hills, I do want to do more of them this year. I kind of gave up on 4 as soon as I got to the halfway mark where everything becomes an escort mission.
You gave it the old college try, you know. You can at least acknowledge that.
Yep. No, it was fine. It's just it wasn't catching me. And whether
Yep.
the Western developed ones will or not, I don't know. I've played 1, 2, and 3 multiple times now. Sorry, not 3. I've done 3 once. But Yeah, no, I want to check out some of the other ones and see if they grab me. Uh, I've been in a very nostalgic kind of mood. I also thought about going to Infernax, Loop Hero,
Oh yeah.
and there's another one, Inscription actually, and
Ooh.
Iconoclast.
Oh, Iconoclast is so wonderful.
It is
I
absolutely
That's one I
wonderful.
would like to go back to. But I don't know, it's weird because like I've kind of had that Metroidvania itch lately as well, which I
Yep.
didn't do Blasphemous that long ago, but I actually really want to go back to Dread.
Yeah, I kind of had that feeling. Actually, I've had a feeling of doing Super Metroid as well. Like
Oh, Super Metroid's just
I'm in such a nostalgic fate of mind right now. Like I want to replay
yeah.
something, but the we've talked about this thousands of times, the backlog. So I kind of met it in the middle, and I just got my copy of Nobody Saves the World for Switch. Not that it's nostalgic or anything, but it kind of has that old school like this is a video game kind of game. It's just nice to
It's
pick up
it's
and play.
it's got that kind of old school style to it that fits that kind of it's what you were hungry for.
Yeah, and it's
Mm.
quite an enjoyable game, and it's funny because you wake up with amnesia, and you're just like this. Uh, I don't even
Nothing.
know. You're nobody.
You're a
Yeah,
nothing.
your name is nobody, and you
Yeah.
walk out and you talk to the first person. They're like, "Why aren't you wearing pants?" I mean, that's cool. You have amnesia and stuff, but where's your pants? It's like, oh, so you find this wand, you end up, and the game's all about doing different transformations, and each transformation that you can do. So, like the first one being a rat, for example, and then you get abilities that'll heal, recover mana, and use mana. So you can consume mana and refill health by chomping on enemies, or you can just bite them normally, replenish mana, and also poison them. And it's very much not a dungeon crawler, but it's very old school Zelda like in its structure, I'll say.
I can I can enjoy a nice top-down Zelda like. It is definitely my preferred style of Zelda gameplay. Like when you were telling me about this game initially, actually there are two things that popped in my mind. One more intentionally and one significantly more satirically. And so gameplay wise it kind of reminded me of the It'll Do games, which are very derivative of top-down Zelda,
Yep.
but more so with a puzzle focus as where it sounds like Nobody Saves the World. It's almost got like RPG style mechanics, and that's
There
kind
is
of
XP and stuff that you got to
yeah.
raise. You got your main XP and then you got your form XP.
And it's like open, but not as open as it could be because there are things you are required to do to progress.
Yeah, so there's always like quests popping up, and they're very like simple quests. It's not like go save the princess or something like that. It's like, oh, you got to use this ability on this many enemies, or try and hit 8 enemies. So I unlocked a turtle, and it has like a turtle spin attack that you can charge up,
Hmm.
and the longer you charge up, the further you go. So if you hit 8 enemies, that gives you a point for that quest. So things like
Wait,
that,
if you hit specifically 8,
8 or more.
I was gonna say I think that's a Mario reference. I'm pretty sure that's the amount of enemies in a row you have to hit to get a one up. I think.
So I wasn't too interested in these guys' previous game, or two games, I should say, because it's the same people who made Guacamelee.
Oh, interesting. That's one on the shelf that I'm like, I booted it up, and I know it's a very beloved game, but I just couldn't get into it at the time. I'm not sure. I got to give it another shot.
I should give it a shot, but it just doesn't have the theme I care for. I guess I should say.
See, the theme I find plenty interesting. I think the thing that threw me off is it is a Metroidvania at its core. One, I know there was less of a focus of this on the second one, but the first one offers up to 4-player multiplayer, which, though interesting, lends itself to kind of weaker level design, I find. Again, I only got so far, so I can't speak to the whole thing. But,
Yep.
if you look at something like Kirby Star Allies,
Yep.
that was a game designed around multiplayer and therefore, as a platformer, kind of suffered. I don't know about the Mario games, but my point made. And also, it was kind of like a beat 'em up, which
Yeah.
I don't know. It kind of felt a little slow for my prefer Metroidvania taste. But
And
anyway,
that's kind of what's turned me off on it, is just the slowness of a slow Metroidvania, if you will.
yeah, no, not fun.
But this has been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, well, the other game that reminded me of when you were telling me about it, mostly the whole "and then you become a rat." Actually, funny enough, is a game we're going to be talking about in today's episode. It's called Claymates.
Ah.
What do you think? Should we dive into this and switch online here?
Yeah, let's dive into a bit of a discussion. We aren't going to so much do like a list episode like we've done. We're just going to do some talking. We are going to point out some things that we really enjoy about it. And you know what? Instead of just talking about what we're going to talk about, how about we just talk about it? We'll be right back. So the Nintendo Switch Online, we've talked about this a lot of times in passing, and there's no question that we've made it very apparent that we are both Switch physical collectors. We absolutely adore a Switch, so maybe we do have a bit of bias here, but we also were Nintendo players growing up, and we were kind of at that age in the 90s and early 2000s where Nintendo played a big part of our gaming history, if you will. And so the Switch came out and it had an online service. I mean, there's been, since the Nintendo Wii, they had the virtual console, right?
Yep.
And you could buy points. Their whole point system never made sense to me, but you bought points and you spent points on different retro games that they had. And then the Wii U came out and they came out with a new virtual console, and you had to go get new points for the same games over again. And now they have this it is kind of like a streaming service, but it's not a streaming service, but it's locked to their paid subscriptions. And we are going to be talking about both ends and kind of how we went about doing our subscriptions, because yeah, it's a little cheeky, I suppose, but it's definitely the recommended way for anyone who wants to get into the retro library that the Nintendo Switch Online does provide. And they have, what, 5-6 consoles available? So they got the NES, the Super Nintendo, the N64, the Game Boy and Game Boy Color, which are linked into one, the Game Boy Advance, and the Sega Genesis or Mega Drive.
You know, I can't help but think one of these things is just not like the other.
One of these things ate the other one.
Yeah, but this is going to be for our listeners the nice the savvy consumer details of if you're really going to get your bang for your buck on this service, because I know for the longest time there was a lot of stigma and controversy that they just weren't quite offering enough for their service. But at the same time, we should probably mention the fact that this service didn't actually launch until 2 years into the Switch's life, something like that.
Yeah, kind of, because everyone had free online and then they put up their service. And I think there's some things that need to be. Go ahead.
What do you play online on your Switch, especially in those early days, right?
Honestly, Super Smash Brothers Online was probably one of the big ones.
Mario Kart.
Mario Kart was absolutely being one.
But I know for me personally, I don't know, it's not the console I look to for online multiplayer experiences.
Oh God, no.
At least at that point. And also, I believe even to this day, not advocating it, just a fact, I believe you don't even need the subscription for free-to-play style games like your Fortnites and what have you.
I don't think you do.
No.
Don't quote us on that, but I don't think you do.
No. But at the same time, it was still, it was just, it connected to the internet.
Yes. And let's touch briefly on Nintendo and online and how they're still living in the AOL days. They're still running on those CDs that came with newspapers, because for one, their eShop which is a whole mess on its own.
Yep.
Extremely laggy, buggy. It's just not smooth to navigate, and it's just full of crud. The online play, granted, I haven't played. I've tried Super Smash Brothers Ultimate online a few times, and I just couldn't. I couldn't do it. It just lagged beyond anything. Their online play service is kind of garbage. Their friends
Well,
network
and
is kind of garbage. I'm going to say
the
that just
Friends
because.
network is some surprisingly archaic way to add your friends onto. And I
Yes.
think, like, I understand if their mindset behind it was, almost to make it deterring so you can't just hop into lobbies and have people add each other because, safety of children. They're
Okay,
very.
but that's not even the case because there is a page of recently played with.
I did not know that.
Yes. So
Wild.
it's just inconvenient to add friends and whatnot. And honestly, like I got a fair amount of friends on my Switch. The not playing online is kind of like why even bother? But I just like seeing what people are playing, and then I also find out about new games that I might not have that way too.
I do like
So,
that feature, yes. Um,
and there's also a page of like your friends have been playing this, and it's like, oh, okay,
what
that
is
seems interesting.
what is your history with like any Nintendo online property pre-Switch?
Um, Pretty much nothing.
I was gonna say I don't really think there would have been much. I know obviously when the Wii came out, seeing people try their damnedest to play Brawl online, the hell that was. Uh,
Yeah, I
I
think I
think
might have
the
tried that
only
once, but I never actually owned
I,
Brawl. I had it from a friend.
I think the only time I ever did anything online was with my 3DS of all things, and doing Pokemon battles online was
Okay.
probably the only thing I could feel it would properly be able to handle. And it did all right. It got pretty laggy with some, but some of the Pokemon games just got pretty laggy at times as well.
Yep.
And that was about it. I'm not looking to these things for my big multiplayer experiences, but at the same time, I might if there was more functionality to it, right?
Yeah.
So
Now let's be honest. Like, not that I have an actual statistic here. I'm just making shit out my ass. But at the same time, I'm pretty sure 90% of those subscriptions are mainly for the Nintendo Online stuff we're going to be talking about today.
well, and honestly, that's why I have it. Is
Yep,
the fact that
that's
I
why
can
I have
play
it.
online is actually the bonus.
That's a lot of people I know don't play online. They play it for the Switch game service. Let's also mention the fact that cloud saves are restricted to memberships as well.
I get it. It's dumb, but I get it. But the worst thing about it is when you forget that's the case and you're like, whatever, I don't need my subscription anymore. And then there goes your save data.
Yep.
Yeah, that is an unfortunate
No,
circumstance that can occur. But yeah,
Nintendo's very much in the past.
it's got your basic amenities, your cloud save, your online playability. But beyond that, there's really nothing special for the service. Like you don't really get discounts. You don't. Ooh, there is a bit of exclusivity, but we'll get into that when we start getting into these consoles. But
Yes.
yeah, it's as bare bones as bare bones gets, and because of that, it is pretty much worth the price of admission. What is it for a year at this base package? It's like $20
Yeah,
for a
it
year.
wasn't very much, like 23 maybe. I don't actually have the prices in front of me. That might have been good, but I'm not good at this, so here we are.
But but for a year, that's
Yeah,
just
so realistically, like
PlayStation.
the
Their
price is
bottom
pretty
tier
good.
is what, 90,
Yeah, it's
something like
pricey.
that. Yeah,
60,
and
70 or something.
that's before you even get into the tiers that are technically worth happening. But we're not
Yes.
here to talk PlayStation services. Um, yeah, no, I get it for the games because the games are
Great.
initially it was just like that's a neat novelty, but now when you actually look at it, oh boy,
And
we got some variety.
there's certainly some that are just it's neat to have access to. Like the original
Yep.
Donkey Kong, I'm not going out of my way to go play or anything. I know there's certainly some people but it's going to be a very niche market, but I don't mind just popping it on the odd time. Just this is it's like reliving your childhood type moment for me. Uh, there's other games that I'm more focused on, like Crystalis. Not that I actually ended up beating it. I did drop it because I forget what came my way, and it's like, oh, I gotta play this now because I've been waiting for it. But I made a good effort on playing through that. So there's certainly some appeals to it. We want to talk some actual games.
Let's talk about some games. I like playing
So
games.
like
And
Crystalis and Donkey Kong, I already just mentioned, but uh, yeah, honestly, I played Dr. Mario for a while. I don't mind my dabbling in some Tetris, mostly just Tetris Effect Connected, because that thing is just a treat. I've talked about it before, but like Dr. Mario, yeah, of course, things like that. Ghosts and Goblins. Now, one thing that these services do offer, and it's also a point of contention for people, depending on how diehard you really want to be, is rewind functions and save states.
honestly, I'm getting old. I just want to see the credits on some games.
Yeah,
Depending on what it is.
and
Jurassic Park 2 is painfully easy. Like just absurdly easy, and I abused the shit out of that rewind feature just because I'm like, whatever, I'm just gonna get to the end. It's fine. I
I
just
just
want to
want to
say I
see
played it.
shit. Yeah, and
Yep.
that's one of those things. And there's some people out there that's going to argue, "Oh, you didn't actually play it then." Blah 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 blah. You just shut the fuck up. I'm
But
just
here's the
enjoying
thing, though.
myself.
I'm not gonna do that with every game. Like when I played through
No.
Super Metroid, no, I'm not touching that rewind feature because this is a game I want to actually play. But for like the curiosities, for
Yeah.
sure I'm gonna.
Like Ghosts and Goblins, I've attempted so many times. I think if I just wanted to see it through, I wouldn't mind using the rewind function. Although I feel like I'd be using
It's
it a lot.
not the original for the NES. The NES one I would definitely abuse the rewind. But
Yeah.
for the Super Nintendo one and beyond, because like that is a franchise that has always fascinated me with its difficulty.
It's one
But
I can appreciate.
I would at least try before I start,
Absolutely.
because I actually think that there is a bit of merit to the rewind, especially with these old school games that are based on memorization, right? I don't got the time for that kind of stuff, but I still want to do it. So, and it can kind of help me practice. And if I'm really enjoying it, then I can do it without.
That's
But
another thing that people don't think about is the practice zones, right? Like it's one thing to practice when it's 5 minutes away, or you could just have it 10 seconds away,
is it
right?
really so hard to be able to say sometimes games are hard? Is that the worst crime in the world? I don't think so.
Oh hell no.
I also grew up with a lot of emulating, which means I've been doing it for years.
A couple other noteworthy games for the NES though online is obviously the Super Mario Bros. And Super Mario Bros. 3. Um, I mean there is the original Mario Bros, which is just like side scrolling, or not even side scrolling. It's like the arena with the POW block in the middle, is it not?
Yes, the Mario Bros. Arcade is that one, but we can't neglect the fact that this has the self-defined greatest game of all time, Balloon Fight.
Yes,
Uh,
yes, it does have
that
this actually. Okay, so we've done an episode on the black box titles. This has most of those black box titles. Actually, when we did that episode, we both kind of hopped in and checked a bunch of them out. I think at
this
the around the same time, anyways, just to kind of
well,
refresh
and
us because we've both played a lot of them, but some are lost to time.
this service actually is how I realized that Wrecking Crew is kind of dope.
Yeah,
So, and yeah, like this service has your essentials. Like you've got the original Zelda, you've got your Mario Bros, original Metroid. You've got a lot of the Nintendo staples, Kirby's Adventure, but then we start getting into, and this is what I kind of really appreciate about these services is like some of the more obscure picks. Like, okay, I don't know if it'd be obscure, but I know obviously this one means a lot to you. It's got Star Tropics, which
yep.
is it's nice that people have the chance to play that. And then we've got stuff like, oh, I don't know. I'm just kind of like scrolling through it. So there's a game called Shadow of the Ninja. And
Yep.
it's just, you know, basic action platformer from the day. There was lots of them, but hey, I'm down to try it. Eliminator Boat Duel, surprisingly fun. You got the Immortal, which straight up sucks, but it's fucking weird, so why
I've
not?
tried it, and yeah, I yo.
I don't get it. I don't get it
No,
myself.
I don't get it. Um,
And then
It's also put on like some very nostalgic games for me, like NES Open Tournament Golf. I really enjoyed as a kid. We never owned it, but whenever we went over to my parents' friends, they had an NES, and that was the only thing they owned for it. So me and my brother would play that all the time whenever we were over there. Well, they went and played cards and drank. So, but then there's also the ones that I wouldn't go out of my way to try out. Like Excite Bike, that doesn't excite me. But
now, regular Excite Bike or the Famicom Versus one, because that's something that the service also does. Is now obviously not to the extent that Japan gets, but we get some Japan exclusives on this, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, and it's different, that's for sure.
I mean, that because of that, I found out, I think it's called The Mysterious Murasame Castle, and this is a game that's often brought up in discussion with the original Legend of Zelda, because they kind of came out around the same time. It plays very similar, but it's more action-y.
Yep.
And I think I like it more. Like, it's just cool that I can even get a chance to try it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Some other noteworthy ones. I mean, you already mentioned Star Tropics.
Yep.
But then there's obviously, like, we don't get everything that's linked up with the Japan side either, right? So one thing that was really interesting to see them bring over was Earthbound Beginnings.
I was gonna say, actually, that's because that's not a game that ever came out, and it's a full English translation, right? So if I'm not mistaken, this is the translation that was available on the Wii or the Wii U or something.
Yes. So the whole story with Earthbound Beginnings, which is like a prequel to Earthbound, they're almost the same game, honestly. Not quite, but almost same principle. They had it all localized and everything, but the Super Nintendo was out, and they found it was going to be too much money to start marketing it because it was for the NES. So they canned the translation, just set it on the shelf, and it didn't come out till the Wii U, I think. So it sat around doing nothing for a while, and now we have it.
But here, you know what's dumb about that, though?
A rewind function in that game is wonderful.
Oh, I can imagine. That game has a frustrating encounter rate. But
yes,
they'll
it
put
does.
something like that on the service, which is great. But at the same time, they will do a limited paid release of the first Fire Emblem translated. Like, that's something that would make perfect sense to be on here and is not. And I think another thing now, I actually think this is great. Like, just looking at this wall of games that I can just hop into, solid. But then it's kind of weird, some of the exclusions, which when you look at why, it makes sense. But no Mega Man, no Castlevania. I understand you can get these games in their own separate collections, which would be why they're not here. But it does make it seem like there's some pretty big holes, right?
Yeah. And there's a lot of like very arcadey classics. Solomon's Key, Adventure Lolo. Things like that, right?
Now, with Solomon's Key, yeah, but at the same time, if you look, there's I think it's called Fire and Ice, and it's a block puzzler kind of thing. And this is the cool thing that the service does from time to time is you get games that are on the secondhand market stupid expensive that aren't even that great. Well, arguably, it's objective, but still. And I can play these games for quote unquote free.
Yes.
So
something else that's with this service, at least for the younger or older games, sorry. The SP versions, the special edition versions.
Now,
and there's a game here that we never actually talked about. The original Legend of Zelda's on here too, and I haven't actually beat this. Zelda 2 is on here, and this is actually how I beat Zelda 2 for the first time. I'm pretty sure. Because Zelda 2 is a hard game. Yeah. Much harder than the first Zelda. And how I beat that and not the first, I don't know. But then they have Metroid. The first time playing the original Metroid was on the service. And they also have a special edition where you start at Ridley. And they also got a special edition, I think a second special edition of Metroid, where you are completely maxed out. So you're starting the game with all your upgrades.
Which is, if it's nice if you just want to hop in and see what the credits are like.
I mean, yeah, it's just some of them are like fun little challenges too, right?
I think it's cool that they're part of it because the whole start something with all the upgrades, or I think the Kirby's Adventure one, I think you unlock a hard mode at the end, and this just has it,
Yep.
and that's nice to be able to skip ahead to. So few and far between, but they're not something I need a lot of. It's
No,
neat that they're there.
it's just a cool little thing to see out, if especially if you haven't played the game, right?
So I guess because we only got so much time and we got a few consoles.
Yeah, let's move on.
Before we move on, what's the standout for you on this library right now? Probably the one you would either recommend or say you are the most fond of.
I think that's pretty easy, and I've talked about it thousands of times. Star Tropics.
Yeah,
Where's my Star Tropics 2?
Yeah, I don't think I even have to say, but it's gonna be
Wrecking Crew.
Balloon Fight.
Wrecking Crew,
Yeah,
right?
Wrecking Crew's great. Yeah, but no, gotta go with my love Balloon Fight. But something I love even more than Balloon Fight is the Super Nintendo.
Yes, the Super
Which
Nintendo is great.
just any reason to play, or you know what, we got to the Super Nintendo and we forgot to mention probably one of the best parts of this service, and where I mentioned that previous exclusivity,
Yes,
the controllers that you can purchase if you are a member of Switch Online.
so as someone who has all three controllers, and by all three I mean the minus the Sega one, right?
I was gonna say I didn't know you had the NES ones, but yeah,
Yes, the NES ones, it's weird because like the Super Nintendo and 64 controller are both USB-C to charge. The NES ones are the only ones that came with two controllers, and they slide onto where your Joy-Cons go.
Neat, but probably uncomfortable to use as Joy-Cons.
Well, you wouldn't want to use them as Joy-Cons.
No.
They do have their flaws, I will absolutely say that, such as no home button on the NES and the SNES version.
That is actually one of the frustrating things about the SNES controller, yes. But
they did add it to the N64 controller.
Good.
Yes. So, but these are authentic replicas of the original controllers. So when you are playing these games, they are just a delight. If you really want to feel like you're playing an NES, N64, arguably you need that controller.
And the N64 one, yeah, it's pretty hard to go to these games with the Switch controller.
The SNES controller has just always been a delight. So
now, and the beautiful thing about the SNES controller is with this high surge of retro-inspired indie-esque games, any game that I buy, if I am able to play it pretty much without my pair of shoulder buttons, if it just uses the standard R and L, I am all about just using that SNES controller for anything I can. It feels so good.
Well, great example when we were just talking about Mana a couple episodes ago with K-Bash. When I was playing through the Mana games, I was using my SNES controller.
It just feels right.
It just feels right.
Too, with all these collections, which are why we don't have these games on these services, but at the same time, like the Mega Man collections, I need a SNES controller to play those games, and it just feels so very right.
And not just the collections. Back on our Mindy's episode, our first one, I think, we talked about Astalon.
That was a great one for the controller.
And you used a SNES controller for that, didn't you?
I did, and I also used it for Hollow Knight. And that, I want to play Hollow Knight again.
I want Silksong. When Silksong gets a release date, I will go into Hollow Knight again. When I played Infernax, I used one of the controllers too.
Yep. It just feels right. But
it's just wonderful.
Yeah, the SNES Online, easily between this and the NES as the original offerings, was the one that I would be more excited for. It's the SNES. How could I not be?
Yes. So we touched on some of the games for the NES. There's over 100 available.
Is there really?
Yep.
Holy.
Yeah.
That's some bang for you. Yeah, no, if we covered every game that was released for this episode, we would be here for a while.
Yes, let's try not to do that.
No, we're just giving the folks a nice sampling and telling them what we like, what we think is weird. We're just doing our rambly thing, and
quick fire so we can talk about what we enjoy.
When it first dropped with this service, I mean, they made a lot of lofty promises. I'm pretty sure they were like, "Yep, and we're gonna update it every month, and it's going to be at least like 2 to 4 games every update. And then that stopped. They were just like, we'll get you new games
When we get them.
periodically. Yeah. And, the service started off pretty strong. I mean, if you look at this lineup, we've got like Link to the Past. That's great. Super
Yes.
Metroid, Super Mario World, Star Fox,
Star Fox
Kirby's
2.
Snarf.
Fox.
Star Fox 2, I think, came down the road a little longer,
It,
but
it
it's
was
still
on the
cool
it was on the first update.
Yeah, and it's nice that it's not locked to the SNES Mini, because that thing's not exactly the easiest thing to get your hands on these days.
No.
And, you get some of the weirder but still more notable titles like, Kirby's Dream Course. That's a game that I think everyone who likes golf games or Kirby really needs to try out, because
Yeah,
it's
it's a good time.
fantastic. It's
One that
how
you learned from the SNES Online, I think, Demon Crest.
Yes, that's so I tried it a good handful of times before the service, but this was the first time I was actually able to sit down and get right through it. Incredible game. Like, it's just classic Capcom, like at its finest. And it's kind of Metroidvania-ish. It's kind of classic level based, but it's a really, really good time, really well made, pretty challenging. And
Yep.
one of the spookier looking Super Nintendo games. So but then you got some really obscure, well, okay, not obscure, but lesser talked about titles.
Like
Like, I
Donkey
think
Kong Country.
there's a lot of talk about that one, actually. No, I was gonna say both Breath of Fire games.
Yep.
That's cool. Like,
That's very
yeah, it's not
neat.
Final Fantasy, but it was one of the heavy hitters back in the day.
Absolutely.
It's pretty too.
Yes. I mean, it's Super Nintendo. A lot of them are damn pretty. Super
Not
Mario World
wrong.
2, Yoshi's Island. I just played last year. I played it as a kid, but I was able to revisit it with the service.
Now,
Super
was it
Metroid,
as
I'm
good
pretty
as you
sure.
remember?
I had a different mindset growing up. I'll say that.
It was 2, so therefore it was the better one. Because I know I always got super excited to play Yoshi's Island because it was the one I wouldn't play as much. And
I think they're too
I don't know.
different to really compare. It shouldn't. It should have been known as a spin-off, anyways.
That's fair. They
don't play in any way similar to one another.
They Super Mario Land 3'd it,
Yeah.
as it were.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. Still great.
This was my first time playing Super Metroid too.
That was
It was on the
also my
service.
first time playing through in its entirety. And it is genuinely just as good as everyone says. Oh god.
It is. It's a good time. The controls are wonky. I don't give a shit, but they're lovable wonky.
Yep.
Do you know what Japan got that we didn't? That I think you would have absolutely loved?
For the Super Nintendo? What's that?
Shin Megami Tensei.
Oh, fucking Christ. I'm upset now.
Yep.
Especially because I actually really, really want to go back to the
You know what
Super
else they
Nintendo.
got that would really piss you off?
Another one?
Shin Megami Tensei 2.
I knew it. Did they also get Shin Megami Tensei If?
Yes.
Fucking Christ. That's upsetting. But I guess it's understandable. Like, they never got official translations or anything like that. But on the online service, what's really weird
we've
about
got some
that,
games
though?
that have never been translated that got translated.
There's that, and we also got Psycho Dream for some weird fucking reason. It's
Yep.
a good game, don't get me wrong, but that is pulling to some weird obscure. I'm surprised even I know what the hell that is. But,
Yeah.
Back in the days of emulation, I played everything I could. So, shit.
So yeah,
No,
as previously mentioned, there's the Donkey Kong Country 1, 2, and 3 from Rare,
Nice
which
to
we've
have.
talked about. I love these games. It's not something I definitely go. So one thing I hate about myself is I know I love these games. I won't sit down and play it all the way through. I think I've just played them too much as a kid. I'm happy with where my nostalgia lays because my gaming experience, I need something more different.
If I'm going to play one, I think I'm going to play 3.
Yep.
Just because 1, I think that's the best one, even though it's arguably not. And 2, I've played the first one too much, and the second one is hard.
The second one is apparently the hardest.
It ramps up, and the difficulty's mostly at the end, but I don't have the
Yeah,
patience to get to the end. So,
that's just it.
here's something we could mention. So we have actually tested out this service slightly. I remember,
Oh yeah,
first just like started with the podcast. We might have been a little bit before that, but we messed around with some Super Mario Kart Online, which
yes, we did.
worked really well. Like,
Yeah, no,
it was.
we didn't have any kind of, and this is when you had worse internet than what you do.
It's not great now, but it's better than it was, and it was awful. Yeah.
But
So
it
no, I would
the
actually
service worked great for you. So yeah, what Tyler's referring to is like you can have your 2-player games and do them online, which is great. And same for the
these
N64
classic
service,
games.
but
Yep. That's the
so
only other one that I've actually tried out online is Pokemon Stadium on the N64 online, and yeah, works like a
good,
dream.
awesome.
Yep.
Again, we got the SP versions of some games.
Not as many this time around.
Not
Well,
as
maybe a
many,
few
but
now that I look.
there's a few, yeah. Not nearly as many as the NES. It also has Earthbound, which
Does have Earthbound. Actually,
I'm glad they're becoming
well,
more upfront with letting people play these games.
it is nice, especially, and like I mentioned before, that whole like price tag thing, right? Where
Yes,
just
where the cartridge
Earthbound's
is
not cheap.
$700 for a
Honestly,
cart.
most of these games aren't cheap anymore. I wouldn't be surprised Super Metroid, like on the cheap, is like 80 to $100.
I think
Like
when I bought
it's
my copy, it was 75.
yeah, so it's not cheap. Oh, and you know what else is nice? They're not afraid to like kind of double dip with these services, and by that I mean like we have Super Mario All Stars, and for me personally, if I'm gonna play the original Mario trilogy, it's gonna be the All Stars ones.
It is nice. I mean
Yeah,
that's the, at least to my knowledge, one of the first remasters I can really think of.
it is the and then we've got Claymates.
Yes, fucking Claymates.
Okay, for anyone who doesn't know, Claymates is a very subpar platformer where you play as like a ball of clay and you find other colored balls of clay that turn you into like different animals, and it's just a I mean, I've played worse, but it is super jank. And then we got some really questionable ones, just like it's cool that it's here, but why that one? Like for example, Earthworm Jim 2, which is cool. Earthworm Jim's great, but why 2?
Yeah, what happened to the first one?
I don't think it's on the Sega service either. We've got the first Harvest Moon, which honestly it's
That's
painfully slow if you're a fan of like farm games, but it's cool that it's here.
that's pretty dope though.
Yeah. Oh, and we just got the Rare collaborating, and so, oh, Killer Instinct.
Yep.
I'm so happy to even if I don't. And the stupid charming thing is because like on the service they just have the box arts, and on the box art for Killer Instinct it even has the little like disclaimer that it
Includes
comes
CD.
with the CD. Yeah, like it doesn't come with a CD now, clearly, but it just warms my heart to see things replicated as they were back in the day. And also, fucking Battletoads is back.
Yes, Battletoads and Battle Maniacs.
This game's so fucking hard. Jesus
Yep.
Christ.
So that's a game that
I
you use Rewind.
It is. I booted it up recently. I'm like, yeah, this is as hard as I remember.
Yep.
So, yeah, SNES service is super solid.
And then the
There's like
Japan version got a Fire Emblem as well.
see, that is kind of cool, but I'm not as upset about that as I am Shin Megami Tensei, especially with
No,
like
God no.
there's not a lot in the ways of like turn-based RPGs on this service for the SNES, which is a really shame because the SNES was the RPG like powerhouse, right?
Yeah, at least I mean I think it'll hold a candle to a later generation, the PS1. I'd say that.
Yeah. Yeah, but it was definitely one of its stronger suits. And like, yeah, Breath of Fire, both of them, really cool. But it'd be nice if we had like some of the really more obscure stuff, like for example, the Lufia games would be kind of neat.
Yep.
We're obviously not going to get any Square representation, but God, the amount of RPGs they could pump on this thing. So
Oh God. Just give us Chrono
and
Trigger somehow.
that that would be nice. And again, you know, you're lacking things like, you know, there's no no Mega Man here, no Castlevania again. So it's got its whole, and it's you got ghouls and ghosts, which is cool, but no
Yep.
Mega Man. So I don't know. Some of the times the selection seems a little off, and then you got Joe and Mac.
Yeah.
So that's where the dregs come in.
As like Japan definitely got more of the turn-based combats, right? I mean, they got
That makes sense.
we both got the Breath of Fire 1 and 2. Japan got Shin Megami Tensei 1, 2, and If. Yeah, we both got Earthbound, or
Earthbound's nice.
I guess it would be called Mother over there, but yeah,
Mother 2.
good times.
Shall we pick a good game and then move along?
Yeah, you go first this time.
All right. So, of all these things that are here, I would like to say Demon's Crest because Demon's Crest was like a really good time. But if I'm actually going to say like my standout that I want people to check out, I want people to check out Stunt Race FX. It's charming. It's like Star Fox but cars. Frame
Fair.
rate's god awful.
So Star Fox. In all fairness,
yeah, it's made by the same people. So yeah, that's my highlight. What about you?
I'm going to be very predictable once again and say Earthbound.
That is predictable, but
Well,
it's not.
the thinking is everyone knows Mario, everyone knows Zelda. Probably one of my biggest games in this list is going to be Earthbound, and the fact that they didn't start releasing Earthbound till the SNES Mini, really,
Yep.
It's nice that it's getting representation out in the current world, if you will.
It is nice that the reception no longer is this game stinks. That's a reference and a half right there.
Yes, that is.
What do you think? Do we go with the Nintendo option or do we go with the odd one out next? Because they both came out at the same time when they launched their premium service.
Let's not dive into the premium service yet.
Oh,
let's go
right.
with
We
the
have
less.
one more.
Yeah, how could you forget this one? It's the Game Boy and Game Boy Color. This is
a
handheld.
Order.
This is your specialty.
All right. I guess I'll go and get myself nice and excited because I am.
So one thing I was very surprised to actually see come out, and just because they did a remake of it, was The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening DX. I mean, I understand because the remake is very, very different. But
it is interesting that they would, because the thought process is always like, let's not put out things that could take away money from ourselves, right?
Yes, it's always been like that, right?
But, no, it's nice that it's here. Actually, I think for the okay, there are some real weird inclusions here, but this is a much smaller library, and the fact that they've also lumped in Game Boy and Game Boy Color, it's almost feels a little bit smaller in that regard. Mind you, this is one of their most recent releases because this dropped was alongside the Game Boy Advance, and that was what, last year, the year before, something like that?
It's been just over a year now, February 8th, 2023.
Yeah, so there's like 25 games on this service, but for the most part, and I understand a lot of people, Game Boy, they're not going to be super inclined to get it, but me, all about it. And
yeah,
we've got some major staples. We got like Wario Land 3, Super Mario Land 2, which they didn't even bother with Mario Land 1.
I was just thinking that. They just said, nah, it doesn't exist. And it's like, oh, come on.
No. I mean, it's not bad, don't get me wrong, but Mario Land 2 is just vastly superior.
It's really good. And that was the introduction of Wario.
Yep. And the only thing that disappoints me about this is, and I know they're not going to because they're not going to put out something that's not their own product, but like if they got like a DX version, and I know there is a fan DX version of this game that like gives it color, runs a little better. Oh, it would just be so perfect. But they do have the Game Boyest game of all time, which is Tetris. And I feel like almost anyone can get on board with the Game Boy Tetris. Not me.
You can appreciate it being
the Game Boy game. Oh, of course.
It is the launch title of a century.
I've eliminated some columns myself.
Yes.
Kirby's Dream Land, which
was that in columns?
I fucking hate columns. Oh, we're gonna be talking about columns as well.
Coming up, columns.
No, No, like if Tetris is the most Game Boy game, I think Kirby is the quintessential Game Boy game. Kirby's Dream Land is like just the system working at its peak. Yeah, it might not be the most challenging, but it is probably one of the best running and consistently fun games on that
And
handheld.
Kirby Dream Land too. So Kirby Dream Land was the first Kirby game,
The
was it
first,
not?
yeah, that is the first Kirby game,
Yeah.
period. And then I believe Adventure came out, and then Dreamland 2.
Yes.
So, and then we
And
got Gargoyle's Quest.
Kirby Tilt and Tumble. And this is not one I thought I would ever see on an emulation service.
So
Because
Kirby to that, yeah, that's when they start impressing you with like, oh shit, they did that.
yeah, because okay, so if you don't know, Tilt and Tumble, Kirby Tilt and Tumble had a little gyrometer in its cartridge, so you actually had to tilt your Game Boy around to move Kirby around.
You
So
also
it wasn't.
popped it up to make him jump.
Yes, yes, you used to
Yeah,
jump. So they mapped that out to the Joy Cons and controller, or the actual Switch itself, if it's played in handheld mode.
hard as hell.
Yeah, I
It is
I fucking loved this game as a kid.
definitively the hardest Kirby game that's ever been made, or at least second to Dream Course, because man, they did not mess around back then.
And I'm going to be totally honest with you. I did not realize that they released Legend of Zelda: Oracle of Ages and Seasons already.
They
I
did,
probably did
yes.
know, but I just when I was going through my Switch Game Boy list, I'm like, oh fuck, those came out.
It's been kind of off my
Shit.
radar, but yeah, no,
Yeah,
it's nice that they're here. Especially, I don't know if they have the parity between the two, and you can unlock the additional content. I guess you would though, because it's password based when you beat it.
it is password based,
So,
and I want to say I heard that they added something in it that you don't have to use the password.
so I
I
know
I,
if you
I could
had
be
it on
wrong.
3DS, if you beat the one, it would just recognize your save file, and the data would just unlock in the other one. But that was on
So
3DS. I
that was the
don't
3DS
know.
version, which was actually the Game Boy Advance ports of them.
Yep. Game Boy Advance ports of
Yes.
Ages and Seasons?
Yep.
Peculiar.
Indeed.
Oh, well, all right then.
Now
Um,
the fact that you don't, maybe I'm talking out my ass. I could have sworn that they had.
I don't think those got ports.
I'm pretty okay. You know what? You talk. I'm looking this
Link to
up.
the Past did.
Link to the
Link
Past
to the
did.
Past
Yes.
got a Game Boy Advance port. Yeah. No, Ages and Seasons have always been locked to the Game Boy Color.
Okay. You keep talking. I'm looking.
All right. Well, I'm going to talk about the fact that on this service we also have Quest for Camelot, which makes no goddamn sense whatsoever. It's weird that I own this game, and for anyone who doesn't know, this is like some really obscure. It's not a Disney movie. I think it was made by like Fox, but yeah, it's like an animated movie, and I don't think it was heavily marketed. Clearly, it got a Game Boy Color game, but I don't think it did that well, and it's just a bad Zelda clone. And the
Yeah. Pretty
weirdest
pretty
part about
much.
it is it makes sense that it's here only if you know that it was published by Nintendo for some who knows reason. Why they would publish a game that's just maybe they did it so that it makes Zelda look better. Who knows?
I mean,
And then we
that's
got the
entirely possible.
and then we have the Pokemon trading card game, which was the first time I was able to experience it, and it's great. I would rather play this than actual Pokemon.
Now, did you not play this growing up?
I did not somehow.
Oh, yeah. We had it. I used to play it a lot. Can't do it now. I wish I could. It's
No,
just a little too I don't want to say plain Jane. Um
no.
Not my style.
I would love it if we got its sequel translated because it's just the same thing with more cards. And yeah, no, I played it beginning to end. I had an absolute blast, but I love myself some trading card games. And looks like as of late too, we got a trio of Mario games. We got Dr. Mario, which I don't care, but it's got some wicked jams. Um, then we got the duo of Mario Tennis and Mario Golf, which I have not played these, but I am dying to play Mario Golf for the Game Boy Color.
Yes. I mean that was I think Mario Golf for the Game Boy Color. Aside from NES Open Tournament, which wasn't it was technically a Mario Golf but wasn't a Mario Golf. the first Mario Golf game I played was Mario Golf for the Game Boy Color, and I
It's
spent so much freaking time in it. Holy
it's the
shit!
prequel to Golden Sun. Yeah, it's a golf RPG. It's like,
We'll get into why here in a minute.
yeah, but oh no, those games fantastic. Have you found your results?
Yes. So it's an unofficial version.
Ah, I was gonna say you couldn't find it because it didn't exist.
Yes.
Ah,
So they do exist. It's just not an actual licensed product.
but yeah, that's pretty much the bulk of the Game Boy and the Game Boy Color offerings.
Yeah. No.
And
Highlights for me. Oracle of Ages and Seasons.
that
But
that is a pretty solid highlight.
if
I
if
know the
if I was going to pick one though, and purely for nostalgia's sake, I have no idea how it handles on the GBA or GB and GBC online. Is Tilt and Tumble.
Tilton Tumble is just a wacky oddity. If there's anything I'm gonna highlight, and it's again I wouldn't try it until this service, but Alone in the Dark for Game Boy Color, and I was messing with this, I don't know, about a month ago or so, and put a couple hours into it. And honestly, if you are a fan of old school Resident Evil with like the fixed camera angles and kind of like the more not I mean point and click is the right way to describe it, but you know, that cool kind of like examine adventure kind of style, right? Just play Alone in the Dark. It's so dumb, but it's so good. Like, it's surprisingly impressive for what it's trying to do on the platform it is. It's like, why does this game exist? And it's another one that's like, why is this on the service? Like that's a little bizarre.
Yeah. No,
So
very very much so.
and then we have the premium offer, the high
Yes.
class tier, which I believe so if it's $20 a year for your basic package, this costs an additional 50.
Yes.
So
It was
70-ish a year.
was it an additional 50 or was it an extra 20?
I think it was additional. I could be wrong though. Yeah, I do. Yeah, no, okay. So yeah, I think it brought up the total package to about 50 a year.
Yeah.
So
I don't think it was an additional 50.
no, but either way, it people were mad, and
Oh, absolutely. Just because they started locking things behind the service, right? So I only got Canadian prices, but Nintendo Switch Online was $24.99 a year. And
okay,
Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack was $63.99 a year. That's for
that's what it was. Okay,
one person.
so almost an extra $40 a year,
So
and
let's talk about this. Just because there's the premium version, we should actually talk about how we kind of solved that big price gouge, if you will.
it's a neat trick, folks.
Yes, family members. So, and by that I mean like me and Tyler don't live together, but we share a family plan along with how many people did we get? There's 6 of us total.
No, I think it was only 4 because it was like 25 bucks a piece, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. That's right. So we split a family plan, which is allows up to 8 members under one pack. So family plan just for Switch Online is
About
44
$100.
$44.99, and with the expansion pack, it's $100.
Right.
So you split it between 4 people. That's 25 each. That's the price of the original online service.
But you get so much more.
But
and
you get so much
make it
more.
cheaper if you can even find the full 8. Like, what's that? Like, not even $15 a piece.
Yeah. So
Yeah. So
do that.
yeah. Now that said, when the premium package initially launched, it seemed like a pretty lackluster service because beyond so you were. I don't even think immediately, or it wasn't until the price increase like actually was official. They rolled out Sega and N64. And N64, obviously very exciting, highly in demand. And
Absolutely.
Sega was like, okay, sure, we'll take that too.
Yep. And I
then
think
they
part of that was
offered-
just licensing, maybe.
I think that's a big part of it. And I'm sure that because there was very little N64 offerings, they were like, we had to do something more.
Yes.
So you had access to those, which then of course, brought on some more premium wireless controllers. You had the Sega and the N64 one, which I don't know about the Sega one, but I know the N64 one was like, for the longest time, impossible to get in
Oh,
stock.
it was always out of stock. They just were not
Yeah.
making them. I don't think they realized how big it would have been. And I think a big part of
Nintendo's
that is
bad for
like,
that.
well, if you look at the NES or the SNES, a
Yep.
lot of those games you could still play with like a Pro controller or the Joy-Cons fairly easily. Where the
Yeah.
N64, it's not as easy as you think. It
No,
kind
you.
of that controller or those games are designed for that controller for the N64.
It doesn't feel right. That's for sure. If you go to
No,
a different scheme, I mean, the fact that like it's weird to say it, but the Z button being on the back is so crucial to how you play those games.
absolutely. And the fact that the D-pad was never used.
Oh, that D-pad got real sticky, real easy.
Yeah.
Now, there was also beyond that a couple other perks to the service that they still have to this day, like, and they're kind of exclusive, but at the same time, you get access to all the Mario Kart DLC, which
So
honestly,
let's clarify one thing. You could buy that DLC outright, or it comes with the
yeah,
expansion pack.
yeah, I think it was like $25-$30 for the whole
The
thing. It's like
the
$8 a
expansion
piece.
pack being the premium service.
Yeah. And then I think there was Animal Crossing DLC you got, and that
Yep.
was it at the start, and now they haven't added a lot more. I don't
There's
know. There's
there's
like
Splatoon stuff. There's it's almost like a season pass for the Nintendo games.
yeah, it's really not the most appealing. It's, hey, if you have those games, great, but if not, you are getting literally nothing out of it. I think something they really should have offered is all of the DLC characters for Smash Bros. 'Cause so many people have Smash Bros, right? Like, that
Yes.
would be a pretty great incentive, but whatever. It's an additional thing there. I'm here for the games.
Yes, absolutely. So I mean it's hard to pick one or two to a lot of these we kind of have to mention because they're all Nintendo products for the most part. You got Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. You got Dr. Mario 64, which I think is hilarious that it didn't actually release on the online service in Japan.
Oh, that is
Um,
weird.
Mario Kart 64, Mario Tennis, like a lot of the starts of the big names that we got. Like, yes, they had Mario Kart for Super Nintendo. Nothing like a breakout hit like it was for the N64.
Well, and that's when
Star
it
Fox
really became
64.
Mario Kart.
Yes, Star Fox
Yeah.
64 was massive. Super Mario 64 was massive.
You
And
got
win back. Okay.
everyone remembers Winback. But then you got some of the like, not the games everyone had, but still everyone wanted to play, right? Like Paper Mario's here.
Yep.
Majora's Mask
Banjo-Kazooie.
is here. Banjo Kazooie's better than Mario 64. I will defend that.
It is the better Mario 64. They rare saw what Mario 64 was and then said, okay, well, we can do that better now. Because
Yeah.
Mario 64 laid the groundwork.
What if Bear and Bird?
But yeah, Majora's Mask, like you said. F-Zero.
Which is good for the people who are hungry for more F-Zero, because they will never get it.
No.
No.
Mario Golf again.
Classic. Yeah.
Kirby 64, which I still haven't played. Pokemon Snap.
Pokemon Snap is a nice one to see. Puzzle League is also kind of a weird one because it's just Tetris Attack or Panel de Pon, but with the Pokemon coat of paint. And I know a lot of people that are stupid nostalgic for this game.
And it didn't release in Japan.
Oh yeah, because they had Panel de Pon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never played it, but Wave Race.
One I have stupid nostalgia for is Wave Race.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, I completed that game so hard. I got unlocked the dolphin at the end of all the time travel attacks because this was the era when you unlock cheats, right?
Foreshadowing for the GameCube.
Yes.
Probably not.
Pilot Wing 64 I still haven't played, but I know a lot of people have nostalgia for it. But Mario Party 1 and 2.
It was one of the two games.
Yep.
Mario Party's great to have here. Then there was the big release of GoldenEye.
Of what?
GoldenEye 007. I know
what's
this was
that
big
one?
Deal. That's the one that I don't want to play.
I just pissed off so many people there.
You know what's funny about this one, other than Pierce Brosnan's weird hand mouth
yes.
thing on the box, is the fact that to get this game on the Japanese online service, they had to develop a separate app for mature games just to put this on it.
Yes.
And it's also weird to me that they did that, but they don't have Shin Megami Tensei on there. Like, that's wild. Those games are fucked.
Yes, they are. Absolutely.
But
It's
great that
it's nice
here,
to see
I
GoldenEye.
guess.
I'd like to go back to it. I don't know if I could handle the I may just emulate it with keyboard and mouse.
I mean, you have the controller for it, but
Yeah,
who cares?
but
Because Pokemon Stadium.
Okay, just GoldenEye, the controls have not aged well. We learned that
Nope.
when it released, and everyone's like, "What the fuck is this?"
Yeah, this is true.
It's like, no,
very
this is
true.
what it was. This is what you used to play as. Sorry, you've been modernized.
Yeah. Yeah, we got both stadiums. It's great. They're slow and monotonous, but if you got the nostalgia for them, God, they're good.
So the original Pokemon Stadium, or the two games on N64, used to have a transfer pack where you could put the Game Boy Color and Game Boy games into. I hope that if they have Stadium, they will do the Game Boy games eventually on the service, and then you can still transfer.
That would be ideal, because until then, these are kind of neutered versions, right? I mean, it is a lot of fun.
They're using the pre-builds.
Well, and, like, when my buddy comes over, we love Rockin' Stadium, and we just build a rental team, and we just have a great time of it, right? But for doing, like, the single-player content in this game, it is genuine. It's not impossible, but it's damn near impossible to take them off with the rental Pokemon, because they are just catered in such a way that, well, they're rentals. I mean, it's not going to be premium. Excite Bike 64.
Yeah, I don't care. I should, but I don't care.
Have you booted it up?
No.
It doesn't feel as much Excite as it does Bike. Like, it's just a motocross game.
But does it feel 64?
It does feel 64. It's pretty.
I can't believe they made 64 of them.
Yeah. We only got 2 of them.
Jet Force Gemini.
Mario Party. Oh yeah, have you played Jet Force?
No, so it's really dumb. I'm pretty sure that's the one I got for N64, like actually on my shelf. But yeah, no, it's one of those ones I've been meaning to, and I just haven't.
It's got a lot of Conker's Bad Fur Day energy in it.
I could believe that.
I booted it up maybe, like half hour or something. The controls are woof. That's an N64 game, all right.
But, I got the controller though, so maybe.
There's a lot of I wasn't playing it with a actual controller, but it's interesting. It's a third-person shooter, and surprisingly, it's got that classic rare level of gory violence and stuff. But I know that it's very, like, people either love it or they don't. So
yeah. One game that people do love, it's not my style, but 1080 snowboarding. I used to hear about this game all the time. So that's
is
cool
one
that
it was kind
nice.
of
It's nice to see.
It was kind of a household. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not going to play it, but
a
lot of people really enjoy this one.
And I should check out Harvest Moon 64, because that's on there.
So if I'm going to play a classic Harvest Moon, it's probably going to be this one. And
at the same time, Stardew Valley just got a big update.
I know, and it's just better. It's just a lot better. And then Blast Core, which I haven't tried yet, but I kind of want to, because it's just a weird game made by Rare.
Yes, absolutely.
It's not nearly as much as the other consoles, but I mean, it's what they have here. I would say it's mostly quality over quantity. It doesn't have a lot of those weird, like, Jalico and Data East games that they kind of pumped into the NES and SNES Online, right? Like,
yeah.
Now, mind you, there wasn't exactly the third-party support on here, but at the same time, what they have here is pretty great. Like, the fact that I can pick any of the Mario parties, or boot up some card or some golf,
and the fact that you can play all these online with friends.
Yeah, you got these,
because this was the sleepover system, right? You stayed over at your friend, your buddy's place, and played GoldenEye or the Mario Kart or the battle modes in any of these. Like, there's a lot of these games that had battle modes, right? So
yep.
Maybe not Pokemon Snap. But like
Be
you said,
weird to battle.
you even have when your buddy comes over and you guys play Pokemon Stadium,
Yep.
right? So
Yep. It's always a good time. And we were doing that like on the classic N64, so it'll actually be nice that like, we can actually play on our individual consoles but still be playing the same game, and we don't have to worry about like input reading and stuff like that.
yes,
No more split screen shenanigans, except it does still split the screen for your shenanigans.
yes,
It's authentic-ish, I guess. But
it's
yeah,
just replicating the screen, right?
what's your big pick from this smorgasbord?
Oh, my big pick.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say Banjo-Kazooie.
Banjo-Kazooie is pretty hard to deny. I think for myself, I know at least since the service has come out, because the N64 is probably the one that I've done the least on, is where like most of these other services I've completed a or a few games.
I think
But
the
if there's one
difference
that
with this is you need that controller.
I think that is a big part of it, yeah. But one that I have been able to do pretty all right without that controller, and I just think is great, is Mario Golf. Like, Golf for the
Oh
64 is kind of, I think that for me is the most perfect one. I haven't played the GameCube one yet, so I can't say for certain, but it's so good. It's also frustrating hard. Like, oh my god.
yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna backtrack us a little bit.
Yep.
Because I'm gonna ask you a question that we should have been asking each other right from the get go.
What should it
What
have?
is what game that you would like to see on each service? So
Okay.
for NES.
For NES, if there was a game that I would like to see on this service, if you got one in mind, you go ahead. I'm going to ponder this.
Star Tropics 2.
All right, that's
So just because I mean it's such a different game from Star Tropics 1. I think it's not just going to be a cut and paste. Here's the second one, right? Like some games are. But
I don't remember.
yeah,
I don't remember the name of it. I always forget the name of it, but I know I've mentioned it on the podcast before, and it's that game where you're climbing up the castle. Crap! Why can't I remember what it's called? But that one, not Tricky Towers, is it?
I don't think so.
I gotta look this up now.
Oh god.
But yeah, that's what I want for NES. We can keep going.
I know the one that you mean. I know what you mean. So for Super Nintendo, this is where I'm at a little loss. I don't honestly know, because a lot of the ones that I do really enjoy are on there. And I'm not going to say something like the Doom port. But
Castilian. That's it.
Okay, I was not expecting that name.
No, me neither.
What about your Super Nintendo one?
Ooh, see, Super Nintendo's real hard for me. I think the thing that also makes it a little tricky is because a lot of the things that aren't on here that I want for Super Nintendo, I have. Like, there's the Mana games, there's the Mega Man games, there's Castlevania games, right?
Yes.
So, hell, I've even got the Darius games on a random collection. But something I would like to see on this, there's a very minimal amount of Sunsoft representation.
Yep.
And the poster boy for Sunsoft you'd think would be Arrow the Acrobat, but I want Zero the Kamikaze Squirrel. It's a weird game that I would love to see on this service.
I'm gonna be super simple and say Chrono Trigger.
That would be so good. But you know what? They could put it on just digitally for $90. I'd be like, all right.
yeah, you're not wrong, but I'd rather see it on the service.
It'd be much nicer to get it for free, yeah. Okay, so original Game Boy.
So Game Boy or Game Boy Color?
Yeah.
Because it is the same service.
Yep.
Go ahead. What would you want?
I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna give 2 here, but I think between the two, either would be fine. I would want either Metal Gear Solid or Resident Evil Gaiden.
Oh God.
Those are really obscure, hard to get games, and it would be so cool to see them, especially Resident Evil, because that was a wild game for the Game Boy Color.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For myself, I don't honestly know. I'm trying to think. I could say Mario Land 1.
I mean, it's weird that it's not there.
I do kind of wish that one of the Pokemon games were on there.
It's surprising that there aren't. Well,
I don't think so. I don't think so, because I think they know they could probably make money off it.
I would.
And I'm sorry whether you're a Pokemon fan or not. I mean, we are Pokemon fans. I feel like Game Freak is a little greedy in that sense.
They've got
They
some
they like
shadiness,
money.
but
They like money.
that's your pick. At least a one Pokemon.
Yes, whether it's
All right,
blue,
all right,
red, or yellow, I don't care. And I know
all right,
people's
all right.
opinions on yellow is fine. If you start out with the anime like I did, I love Pikachu, so I don't care.
Ah, that's fair. Now N64. I think I know what you're gonna pick, but I'm gonna let you say it first. I'm very confident I know what you're gonna say though.
Oh, I bet you do.
Yeah,
Although it's kind of a toss up, honestly.
yeah.
Um,
I
Donkey Kong 64.
Oh, that's not what I was expecting, actually.
Oh, really?
It's kind of weird that it's not there now that I think about it, but I know all the rare stuff, so
Yeah.
it might end up on there now that they've kind of broken that ice, right?
Yes. What did you think I was going to say?
I thought you were going to say Space Station Silicon Valley.
That was my other one.
Oh, okay. So I was half on the mark,
You're
at the
half
very
right.
least.
But yeah,
All
Donkey
right.
Kong 64. And I know people look at it as like, oh, it's a giant fucking collect. Yeah, yeah, it is. But at the same time, you know what was more of a backtracking collectathon? I personally find was
What's
Banjo
that?
Tooie,
Yeah, yeah. Banjo Tooie was.
and Banjo
I've never
Tooie does
beaten it
not get the
myself.
shit that Donkey Kong Country or Donkey Kong 64 takes.
It's starting to. The reception is really cool to Banjo Tooie, which I don't think
Yes.
is on the service now that I think about it.
No, it's not.
See, there's a good handful that I could pick because there is such an absence on the N64 online. If I had to say though, do I want a good game or a dumb game?
One that you would play.
Oh, if there's one that I would play, and this is a long shot, but I adore this game. Toy Story 2.
Was there a Toy Story 2 for
the
N64?
N64? Yeah. Yeah, it was on N64
Okay, yeah.
and PlayStation.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
It was a 3D collectathon platformer, and I would actually say I like it more than Mario 64. It's
That's fair.
surprisingly good.
I know the PlayStation 1 Toy Story 2 has good reception.
It's the exact same game.
There you go.
Yeah. So, and then now we're on to the odd one.
Yes. So this was a bit of a surprise to I think everybody. But when they announced the expansion packs, they did the N64 and then they did the Sega Genesis, which is just wacky. And we've done an episode on Sega stuff. Neither of us are too fancy on it, but there are some that we want to talk about. So let's jump right into it. I mean Castlevania Bloodlines. It's Castlevania game. It's good.
The fact that that's on here, but there's no Castlevania anywhere else.
That is a lie. There's Castlevania Legends on Game Boy.
Oh yeah, and that one's expensive too.
Yes, it is.
And Earthworm Jim 1 is on the Sega, which makes it really weird if you want to play the first one then the second one back to back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mega Man: The Wily Wars, which is kind of neat. Although I've heard mixed receptions of it.
It's not great, but it's a decent enough Mega Man game. Like there's definitely worse ones, and I think the thing that makes this one weird is the fact that it is on the Genesis. It's it's the Mario All Stars of Mega Man 1, 2, and 3, which on paper sounds really cool, especially because when you beat them, you get additional content in the Wily Tower, right?
Yes.
Got a lot of things going for it. But something just seems a little off, and you play it, and it doesn't feel good. I'm not going to say it sounds bad, but I mean, I much prefer the NES sound chip than the Genesis twang, at least for, my beloved Mega Man games. Yep. But it's cool that it's here because, yeah, it has that turbulent history of being a Sega Channel exclusive, which is basically what this was in the 90s, which was bad.
Yeah, although at the same time, bad but ahead of its time.
It was incredibly ahead of its time. Just did this through cable, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
What I will say about this collection of games, because there's quite a few, and we're not going to go over everything, but I think for people who aren't familiar with the Sega library, much like yourself, this is a pretty great selection of like what it was like to be a Sega fan, right?
Yeah.
You've got your staples, like obviously Sonic the Hedgehog 2. They were smart. They didn't even bother with 1. and 3 they knew they could get it at premium. But like Shinobi 3, Streets of Rage, Gunstar Heroes, like these are a lot of the ones that you're going to hear come up in conversation about
Shining
Sega a lot,
Force
right?
is
Shining Force is another
one.
big one.
Phantasy Star.
Yep. Yep. So you basically got like
Shinobi.
this Yeah, Shinobi 3 it's fun.
Yeah.
I've not gotten as far as I would like to, but then you've got like Echo the Dolphin if you
No,
yourself.
fuck Echo. It's like, oh, this is neat. Oh no, this is bad.
And then one that I'm stupid nostalgia for, even though I hate it, is Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine.
Yep.
Like just Puyo Puyo, and I don't like it, but I played a lot of this one as a kid. Contra Hardcore, which is the only Contra game I've really kind of tried, and I've not tried it much, but I like it. It's doing a lot of cool things. It's just way too hard.
Yes. No, absolutely. Light Crusader. That's
Crusader
the one we were both
was,
playing at the same time.
Yep.
Treasure game.
Yep. And the fact that, you have the access to all these treasure games is nice, because treasure is like the rare of Genesis, right?
Now, did you finish Light Crusader?
No, but I think you did, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, I got maybe about halfway through and then I moved on. But I liked what it was doing.
You got me invested in it and then you gave up.
Yep.
Dick.
Yep. Now figure out how it goes for me. Then you've got Beyond Oasis, which I don't know if it's like a Sega stigma or whatnot, because I only get so far. I think it's because all the sprites are so gosh darn big.
Yeah.
But Beyond Oasis is cool. Like, it plays kind of like a Mana game, kind of like a Zelda game. I don't know, top-down action adventure. And it does some pretty interesting things. And you got Virtua Fighter, which is Virtua Fighter 2, which this is an original case of like a remake, because I think this was for like the Saturn, I guess is what it would have been at the time. And it was like one of the first 3D or maybe even arcades, like a 3D fighter.
Yeah.
And it was very revolutionary. And they're like, let's put it on the Genesis. And it looks like a shitty DOS game.
I can believe that.
Yeah. Pulse Man, which is actually really cool because it's not only just a solid action platformer, but this is Game Freak before Pokemon.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's just, it's a Japanese exclusive game, but you don't need any, you don't need to read. It's just a really fun, zippy platformer.
So this is actually going to be one of those consoles that we pretty much have everything that Japan has and vice versa. There's only two games. One game that we don't have and one game they don't have. And when I say what they are, you're going to be like, well, duh. And that's Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine and Puyo Puyo.
Yeah. Yeah, that kind of checks out.
Yep. So pretty much the same game, just vice versa.
But if there's... You know what? I think... Do you want to make our picks? Get onto the Game Boy Advance?
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you got?
For one that I want to play, honestly, I know it's not the best one, but I'm going to say Mega Man The Wily Wars.
That's a good pick. I have played it through myself a couple times. And
as someone who's played Mega Man 1, 2, and 3, I just kind of want to see the differences,
It's a neat curiosity, and it's still good. Like, it's Mega Man. It's just not the goodest. My pick goes to the most recent entry, as far as I'm aware, which is Crusader of Senti. And this is another top-down action RPG. I can't speak to it a whole lot, but again, if you like top-down Zelda, it would play a lot like that. But this is one of those games that's like Little Samson prices expensive. Like,
okay,
on the cheap, you're paying like $1,200 for it,
and that's dumb.
It is dumb, and it's an Atlas release, and I have a soft spot for Atlas. So that's one that, like, if I'm in a lull point and I want to play some Sega Genesis, I think that'll be my first pick.
That's fair. What would you want to see on the service?
As strange as it sounds, because we all know how much we love sports around here, I would love to see either Mutant League Hockey or football on there, because they're fun arcades. It's almost like how, if you're not a sports person, you can probably get into something like NBA Jam. Like, it's kind of game like that, right? And yeah, the Mutant League sports games are I don't know. I got a lot of nostalgia for it, and they're fun. And
It's one of
Sega
those
was
like
known for sports.
if you look at sports games nowadays, they're all like taken serious. Where like back in the day with NBA Jam, it's just have a good time, hop in, enjoy.
Oh, well, like in Mutant League Hockey, you could, like, break people through the ice, and then there would be holes in the ice that you'd have to worry about while you're playing. And if you got into a fight, it would transition to a full-blown boxing match in a ring and everything. Like, it was just a bunch
Oh,
of
that would be kind of
stupid
cool.
presentation. Yeah, no, it was fun, and you're fighting as, like, skeletons and mutant men and stuff like that. So, yeah, no, Mutant League Sports, those are my pick.
Fair
Man,
enough.
yeah.
For myself, it's going to be a one that I used to play as a kid all the time. And I really want to get back to, and I thought about emulating it, and I just haven't. And that's Dungeons and Dragons: Warriors of the Eternal Sun. I think it's called. And
Oh, I
it's
know what you're getting at.
yeah.
That's a
Um,
cool pick, actually, because I remember because I was watching a playthrough of it like a year ago or so. It looks fun. It looks hard, but like the
it
kind
looks
of
hard, but it has that old like super D&D flair to it. I mean,
well,
it
and
is Dungeons and Dragons, but
it's the
um,
kind of game, and I feel like this is exactly the feeling that you're going through it, and I can kind of like see where you'd be coming from. That you would play a lot as a kid, and you would really like, even though you had no idea how to do anything, and
oh,
want to
absolutely
approach it as
zero.
an adult who can like comprehend it and actually get through it the way it was
Yes,
intended, right? Yeah.
absolutely. I
No, I
played
think
it
that would be
crap
super
ton as a
cool.
kid. Used to go through spurts of just playing the beginning, and found it really funny how the town had pre-dug your graves for it. So
They were ready
you
for
could
you.
find your grave, and it's like, okay, just go adventure, and when you die, you're going here. This
Yep.
is where you go. It's like, oh, I'm going to restart my game. I want the top one.
Well, and
But
what I like
that's
about that game too is like it has such very like, everything is terrifying.
yes, no, it struck a good sense of fear for not being a horror game.
Hmm.
So it was
Yeah.
definitely a you are adventuring
That's a
style.
solid pick, I'd say.
Yeah. And then last but not least, the Game Boy Advance. The Game Boy Advance is fucking wonderful.
Well, and this is I think, it's the newest, so it obviously has the least on offer, but see, this is short and sweet. I would say of all the games on offer, which at present I think it's only 15, it's all quality. Like it doesn't have any of that weird filler crap that all the other, like even the N64 has a couple weird kind of fillery games, right?
Yep.
As where like Winback. What the heck is
As
Winback?
it's that one game that's back
It's
at the
it's
win.
it's Winback. And with the Game Boy Advance, when you've got a couple redundant picks per se, like a lot of people would say, why would you put on Super Mario Advance or Super Mario Advance 4, which is just Mario Bros. 2 and 3, right? But
Yep.
they have their own additional content that you would never be able to get. Like the Super Mario 3 has all the e-reader levels, which is incredible.
Oh,
More
absolutely.
Mario 3 is the best. And Mario 2 has, I think there's an exclusive level, and the only appearance of Robo Birdo,
Ah,
which is
yes.
just nightmare fuel. But it exists. Um, but yeah, there's no filler at all. Now that said, I have a deterrent with those games, and it's because they gave all the characters a voice.
Yes.
Why? Why do I have to hear Mario talk every time he gets a power up or gets
Why
hurt?
not?
Yeah, that's the
Although
biggest deterrent. But
some big names to kind of point out, Legend of Zelda: The Minish Cap. I gotta
great.
beat that one day. The Kinstones just bothered me so much. I
The
should really go
Kidstones,
back.
admittedly, as a kid, I thought the Kidstones were neat, but when I last played this, and I didn't get to the end, but I think I got to about the fourth dungeon. Yeah, the Kidstones are kind of just they definitely seem like bloat, but it
Yeah.
is one of my favorite top-down Zeldas to just play, and it's got that gimmick I'm a sucker for when you go tiny. I don't know, it's a good time. Mario Kart Super Circuit,
Yep.
it's here. It's
It's there if you
here
want
to
it.
be played. You know what I
Mario
think
and
is
Luigi's
actually kind of
Superstar
cool?
Saga.
That's a great one, and I think that you know what's actually cool about this. Now that I look at it, but 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 RPGs, and for how little of a selection there is, that's a healthy amount.
And given the size of some of those RPGs too, right? Like you got
I'm
Golden
counting
Sun
Fire Emblem
and
as an
Golden
RPG.
Sun: The Lost Age, and then Fire Emblem: The Blazing Blade.
Yep.
There's also the Binding
Yep.
Blade in Japan.
Oh, yeah, that's funny enough. The first game with Roy, but we never got that here.
No,
And then you've got Metroid Fusion, which, you know what? It's got its detractors. I think.
no,
I don't
Metroid
know.
Fusion's great. I understand why some people are all hot and bothered by it, but at the same time, if you take it as its own thing, like not everything has to be Super Metroid.
Well,
It's
not
still
only
a good
that,
game.
it does what it does so goddamn well.
Yeah,
Like, I think its linear nature, because of the fact that it went more story focused, oh, it complements it so well. And
it
it's
does.
still, like, it's creepy, and it has at least a decent amount of challenge, I'd say. Like, it's far from the hardest Metroid, but it's still, you know,
It's still good.
it's got some challenge. It's still fantastic.
Depends if you get to I forget the boss's name, but I just want to say Nightmare. I think his name was.
Oh,
That creeped a lot of
oh,
people out.
the one that messes with the gravity and his face melts.
Yes.
Oh, so metal. I love it.
And
Then
I gotta point out something that bothers me, but I also understand it. But I know it bothered a lot of people. Mother 3 in Japan. Still nothing for North America.
that was mean. That was very mean.
That
The
was
fact that
mean.
they were just like, oh, by the way, this is out for them.
Yeah.
Haha, bye. We got WarioWare.
Yep.
WarioWare's great. It's short, sweet, super fun. We got a weird, obscure one, which is Kururin. Which for
Yes.
those who don't know what that means, it's just a game where you're a spinning propeller trying to get through these pathways. Kind of like a puzzly game, but I haven't gotten too into it myself, but I can see why people really like it.
Yes. Aside from that, yeah. What you want to do picks?
All right. I'm gonna do my pick first, just in case you pick as my pick, and I want to talk about it. But I'm gonna go with Kirby and the Amazing Mirror, and one, because it's a solid Kirby game, but two, the fact that this, I want to say, is the highlight of Switch Online's online capabilities, is the fact that this is a solo, like a single player Kirby that had multiplayer capability, where there's no compromise to the experience. And the fact that you and I could be playing online, we're both in completely separate parts of the world playing our own single player game, but then you could just pick up your Kirby phone to give it a ring and then pop, I'm in your game now.
Oh, that's cool.
It's so cool.
That's
and
really neat.
It's not level based like your standard Kirby game. It's actually more of a Metroidvania. And the map is one of the most confusing and frustrating things I've ever experienced. But at the same time, like, you could be in World 1, go through a door, and now you're in World 4. Then you go through a couple pathways, and then you're in 2, and then 7. And, like, traversing it is wild. It's a really good Kirby game.
That's really neat. I have yet to try
pick.
it, so I should really do that one day. I'm not going to pick that. I'm going to pick Metroid Fusion because I really enjoyed it.
All right. That's fair. That's a good pick.
It's a solid pick.
Yep.
I'd like to say Golden Sun, but I haven't played the Golden Sun games, and I want to one day.
I'd like to say Golden Sun, but I have played the Golden Sun games, and that's why I'm not gonna.
That's fair.
They are great, but I'm in no rush to do those again. This is a meaty sandwich of an RPG series.
Absolutely. What would you want to see on this service?
Oh god, there's so many great Game Boy Advance games. But if I had to pick one, it would be, and I also like that it could kind of incorporate the Kirby Tilt and Tumble thing, is if they were to do Drill Dozer, I think that would be fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
And the only fancy thing Drill Dozer did is it was a cartridge with a rumble pack built in, so sure, it'd be easy enough to get some rumble with the game, because it kind of worked with it, with like the different stages of drill power that you used, and to explain it doesn't make much sense, but I think that would be my pick to get on the service. How about you?
Mine is pretty obvious. Once again, I'm good old predictable Josh. Although kind of cheating. Mother 3, but English.
It's already there.
It's
but
not.
Not actually.
Not actually.
Yeah, that is.
So
now
if
that said,
if that's not actually allowed because it is there as it's just not for us. I'm I honestly don't know.
I was gonna say if you're not satisfied with the fact that we're not getting Mother 3, at least they have confirmed that at some point we are getting Metroid Zero Mission.
This is true.
Yeah.
So that's almost a cheap out too.
Yeah.
Ah, son of a gun. No, I'm just gonna stick with Mother 3 because I can't think of anything at the moment.
Robopon 2.
That's a you thing.
It is very much a me thing. So with all of these quality games and more, what do you think? Do you think the Switch Online service is finally worth it? You get your bang for your buck?
If you do the family pass, like we were mentioning earlier, I think that is definitely worth it. It is the way to go, especially if you got some good friends that you can work with or an actual family. If you're going to do the expansion pass just solo, it's still a bit pricey. Like these are older games, and they don't up. If there's more consistency in the updates, then yeah, sure. But because there's no consistency, you never know what's around the corner. Maybe that is a first world problem to have, but at the same time, they've made promises, they've taken back promises, that kind of thing. So I do think the family pass is the way to go.
Now, I think my only issue with this personally, and I can't even really say it's an issue, it's kind of just a trapping of the service as well, is that these aren't going to be games, and I don't have to stress how much I love all these consoles and these retro games, but beyond that, these aren't the things that I'm getting myself hyped to play, right? The fact of the convenient nature of it all is these are what I play when I'm so bored that I go to this. So,
Yeah.
Or I have
you
nothing
don't want
I'm
to
in the
start
middle
something
of,
in
or
and you don't want to start something in the backlog, or you want to check something out.
these are the short bursts, Now that said, I'll take this over mobile gaming any goddamn day.
Oh
But
yeah.
at the same time, it doesn't have that same kind of oh my god, I'm so excited to play vibe. But that said, once I am playing these games, I don't have any less of a good time due to that fact.
No, absolutely not. Just bring us Mother 3.
Now, here's before we work towards closing out this topic, there is one obvious big apprehension or issue that I have with this, and I'm going to voice my wishes for what may come of it one day, even though I know I'm not going to get it. But because this is an online service and the nature of such, these aren't games I own. They never will be games that I own. These are just things that I have access to until one day I no longer have access to. And that is really disappointing. It also kind of gives it the I should play it now while it's around, but also, like I just mentioned, I don't have the greatest incentive to go out of my way for these. I just happen to stumble my way into them.
It's
But
nice to have access to them, though.
if they were to announce that they were discontinuing the service and they came out with, and even if it was just stupid expensive, maybe not too stupid expensive because I only have so much money, but if they came out with physical compilations of these, either each console or just release waves or whatever, I would love to have the entire selection that is on offer to be able to play it all. Because I just like having games.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like a
Yeah.
Switch Online collection physical.
That would be great, because I've got a couple the Sega compilations I have, and it's not all the games I want, but I want a lot of the games, and I'm glad to have them all and access to them.
Absolutely.
Maybe I'm just real greedy like that.
So my biggest concern is when they inevitably announce the next Nintendo console, whether it's Switch 2 or whatever. Every time they've done this, they've restarted from the very beginning. And if they do that with this online service with their next console and restart from, oh, here's NES, here's 10 games from the NES, go have fun. Fuck off.
Yeah, I would like to think that, because these are just applications, they should work on whatever Nintendo's next console is, but
they would have
that's not how Nintendo
everything.
Thinks, right?
No.
So,
again,
we don't
they're
even
using
know if
AOL discs.
Yep. Yeah, their 5 free hours are running out.
Yeah. So
to think that's how the internet was distributed, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
So
I like it.
I'd like to think that they continue it on.
That would be ideal. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the Switch Online service. How about yourself?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, if you are wondering if it's for you or not, I mean, really, just do the right thing. Do price versus what you're looking for. Is it things that you're actually going to play? Do a family plan. Find some friends to join in.
If you've gotten this far in the episode and you're really uncertain, why don't you just listen to it again, preferably on someone else's listening device and account with them, and then listen to our previous catalog, and then like and subscribe and share on Twitter. Then by the end of all that, you might know if the service is for you.
Yeah, that's a very convoluted way of finding out.
Topic. It'll work. I guarantee it.
Fair enough.
Yep.
Oh, dear. So I guess as we wrap things up and start doing our plugs and whatnot, you can find us over on Twitter at OptionalBossPC, as well as Instagram at OptionalBossPC. You can always email us comments or questions at optionalbosspodcast@gmail.com. And if you are on Spotify listening, there is usually a post saying it's an auto post that gets put up with every episode. Just asks, what did you think of this episode? So if you want to leave us any comments that way, you can. You can always DM us on Twitter as well. Our DMs are open for the time being. And aside from that, Tyler, anything else?
It's very hot in here.
In the box?
In the box, yes.
All right. That says it's time to wrap this up. Guys, we'll see you next time. Take care.
Bye.